Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is going to be the first video of our Compose Multiplatform travel marketplace app, and this is going to be a really exciting video because in this video I'm going to show what we are going to develop, and along with that we'll be setting up the architecture of the app, of the code. So I'm really excited about it, and I won't waste any of your time, and we'll just get started and I'll show you the design and then we'll start working on the architecture side of the app. So basically, this is going to be the UI that we will be following. We have some onboarding screens, then we have some login and sign up screens, then home screen, a little bit of like tour details, trip details and all that, some images. Then we have scheduling, like how you can schedule that, and some of the profile related stuff. We have a chat functionality. I'm not sure if we'll be able to do that. I'll see if like it didn't take much time. And then inside this there are some screens that are missing, like the checkout screens, and payments and all that. So this is going to be a full-fledged app that will work on, we'll be implementing the mobile apps for this, and then on the website we will be implementing the dashboard for the vendor side. And yeah, I think that's pretty much what we are gonna do. And now what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna create the architecture. So basically, when it comes to architecture, or like when it comes to the basic structure of the code, we can definitely follow what we did in the previous app, which was the Notes app, in which basically we were keeping things like in one place without worrying about much about where we can place things and how the things might scale in future, because that application was very small and it has like a couple of screens, either one or two major screens. But when it comes to like scalable application or like big application like these that has a lot of features, a lot of files and all that, I prefer to set up basically a proper architecture for the app, so that it's scalable, it's maintainable later on as well, and it's testable as well. So these are some of the things that we'll be doing. And the architecture that I've selected for this is clean architecture. And when it comes to clean architecture, there has been a lot of confusion. There has been so many questions that comes into mind when someone implements clean architecture as a first timer or as a beginner, because like there's so many classes, there's so many files that you have to create, but trust me, they are more valuable, and I'll try to explain why there is a need for that kind of flows, and how we can make it more understandable. We'll try to understand the architecture, the purpose of the file, so that it's not just some sort of a rule of thumb. Rather, it's an understanding that basically helps you understand the design, understand the architecture well as well. Now, when it comes to clean architecture, there are layers. And when I talk about layer, it means the code is basically structured into different layers. It's placed into different layers, and each layer has its own responsibility. Like I said, everything has its own single responsibility. They won't be doing much. Now I start with the three layers that normally we discuss, like the data layer, domain layer, and presentation layer. So these are the three major layers that are basically there. And then along with that, you can like define so many other things as well, but we'll focus on these three things, right? So basically, the first layer that I think we need to discuss is the domain layer. A domain layer is something that basically contains all the business logic. Like it will be the guiding one, right? The whole application will basically surround that. It will not be dependent on anything. The domain will be independent, and that will define all the business rules of the app. And the next layer would be the data layer. The data layer is basically just the one that basically provides the data, right? The data can come from the web services like APIs and web calls, or it can come from the local storage, or it can come from caching or whatever. So the data layer is responsible for providing the data, right, or processing the data, and the domain layer is responsible for all the business logic, all the stuff that you need to do. And the presentation layer is related to how the data is presented to the user, right? So the domain is there as an independent, the data handles the data, and the presentation is basically related to UI. Now take an example of restaurants, right? So for example, every restaurant has some specialty, some foods and all that. So you go to the restaurant and you order something. Now you go there, you have a proper menu, you have a dining area and all that. That is basically the presentation of that restaurant, right? Where a customer or a client or a consumer basically communicates with the service. Then comes the kitchen where there is a chef. There are some recipes. The chef basically process all those recipes, right? And based on those recipes, basically they prepare the food. So basically that is your business like domain section where basically all the stuff is going on. And the third one is basically your like it could be your storage, local storage, or it can be your supplier that basically provides the ingredients, because the chef cannot prepare food without ingredients. And for ingredients you need some sort of, let's say you need tomatoes, potatoes and all that, and basically that is being provided by the suppliers. So the supplier becomes your data section, right? And it doesn't matter like the supplier, you can change supplier at the end of the day. You can change the supplier, you can get ingredients. Maybe you are getting from supplier 1, now you can go to supplier 2 and ask for some other ask for the same ingredients. It will not impact the way the food is being made, right? Same goes with the presentation. Let's say you want to change the dining area, you maybe want to change the theme, you want to change the chairs and all that. It doesn't matter, right? Because the food is independent and the UI is independent. You can maybe provide forks, or maybe you can provide chopsticks and all that. That basically comes to the UI part. So basically that's why basically clean architecture is quite easy to maintain, and it helps with keeping things loosely coupled so that changing one do not actually impact the other. And now basically this is a little bit of how the clean architecture is. And now what we are going to do is that we are going to actually implement a basic flow with a clean architecture. There are some other stuff as well that I'll basically explain. And yeah, now let's just not waste any more time and get started with our first, like with creating our project. So I'm going to go to my Android Studio, and from Android Studio we'll be creating a new project. And like we need to create a Kotlin multi-platform project. Now over here I'll name that Travnor CMP, right? And this is going to be Travnor. The rest of the stuff could be normal. We need Android and iOS for that. We also need a server implementation, but for now I think we'll keep that independent, and we later on will add web as well. So for now this is just that, and then we'll finish it. So once you finish all that, it will basically be preparing the stuff. Okay, so now the project is ready and we were able to run it. Now let's try to run the code base and see if everything is working as expected. And meanwhile, I'll switch it to project so that we have a visibility of things. We have this compose app right now. We need to add the different modules, like I said, for data, presentation, and data, domain, and presentation. But we'll start working with like things one by one. So now you can see it's running, and this is basically how it is supposed to. So it's working right now. Now the first thing, like I said, let me just do it once again. So if we go over here, this is basically the main app section, and let me just zoom it a little bit. Now in clean architecture, we have 3 layers. One is domain, then we have data, then we have presentation, and then we will be using compose app. So basically these are the different layers that we will be using. So basically this is going to be a completely independent layer, and this is basically be the one that will not care about what's going on, like how the data is supposed to be shown, and how the presentation is how the data is basically supposed to be processed, and how the presentation is supposed to show the data. It doesn't matter. Now when it comes to data layer will basically depend on domain, which will basically The data will make sure to assign things based on how the domain might need it. And then will presentation will also be depending on domain. It will not communicate with the data directly. It will just ask the domain through different use cases and all that. And this compose app is going to be something that basically holds everything. So basically you can say it's kind of the restaurant building that have all those components. Over here what we will be using the Android and iOS specific stuff. We will be using DI and all that. So basically these kind of things will manage over here. So now the first thing, like I said, we need over here is to create a new module, and that module is going to be the domain module. So we'll go over here, new module, and this module is going to be domain, right? And we'll be using the shared module, like over here. Let's call it domain, and this is going to be finishing. Okay, now you'll see that you have a domain module as well over here that is basically have some of things like iOS main, Android main, host test, device test, and all that. I don't need anything. Let's just delete everything. For some reason it's not deleting, so let me just open that in Finder. We just need the common main, nothing else is required. Okay, so that's that. Now we get over here, you will see that we have this common main inside this domain section. And along with that, like I said, we need data and presentation, so we'll create those modules as well. I'll just quickly create those module and get back. So we'll just go over here, let's call it data finish, then we'll create one more. Okay, so we have data, then we go over here, new module. This is going to be again, and that is going to be presentation module. And the presentation is going to be like this as well. So again, the data, for data, again, I just get rid of all these Android, iOS, just keep the common main. Basically, we have a three different section. One is data, domain, and presentation. And like I said, the domain is supposed to be the one that's basically handles all the uh, business logic, like how the things will work, what kind of processing and all that. Everything is supposed to be done there. And the data is supposed to be the one that is basically going to handle the data related stuff, maybe API calls and all that. But for now we don't have anything, so I'm going to create some sort of dummy thing, some data source that's going to be dummy over here, and we'll basically access that specific data on the presentation side, and we'll show it to the users. Okay, so I'm going to create one test file just to add some package over here, and I'm going to create one as model. Then we'll be creating one other package that is basically going to be use cases, and the last one is going to be repository. Okay, so these are the three packages that we'll be using or we'll be creating. And basically the use cases are something that is basically a single job, like I said, a single recipe processing, or maybe a waiter taking an order from the user, or anything like that. Or when it comes to basically if we look into this UI section, let's say the sign in functionality. So the sign in API call, taking the input from user and sending it to the endpoint, and then getting those data. This one task is going to be one single use case. Same goes for fetching this destinations and all that. And the benefit of creating these use cases, let's say if you have some sort of listing like this best destination, you can maybe use the same listing over here in some different screen, and you will just have to use the same use case. You don't have to like write your own code once again, or like all those things. So basically that's basically how a use case is. And the second one is the repository. So basically the repository is something on how you can say it's basically the storage manager, or something like that, that basically helps you get data or get stuff from the data repository, because like I said, it's going to be independent. So what we'll do is that we'll write some sort of abstraction, some sort of mechanism, or some sort of rules where we'll define how the data is supposed to come to the domain, and then based on that the data will be implemented. So basically, I've created one model already, which is basically travel listing, and this basically travel listing contains a couple of things. For example, it contains this ID and this title, description, location, image URL, price per night, the ratings, and what kind of amenities that they provide, the host name, and all that. So basically, these are the listings that we have, and along with that, we have some formatting related functionalities that one can access. So basically, this is just a model, right? This is just a data class that basically contains this. Can be this information might come from the server to the user. And then the next thing could be creating a repository. So for example, for repository, what we can create is we can create listing repository. Okay, and this is going to be an interface. Now for this, what you can do, you can just create your functionalities, for example saying get all listings, and then this is going to be a flow of travel listing. Okay. Okay, let's just do some more stuff over here. Now for iOS, we don't need these kind of targeting. So instead, what we are gonna do is that we're gonna use the list of all these, because for that we need to define it this way. So we'll be using IS ARM64 and simulator ARM64. And over here, we don't need the common test for now, Android main, runners, or iOS mains and all that. We'll just clean up these things and sync it. Okay, so now the flow is not there. So what we need to do is that we need to add the coroutines as well. Okay, let's go there. Do we have coroutines? Okay, it doesn't have the coroutine, so I'm gonna add that over here, and along with that we'll pick the coroutines version, this, add it over here. Once we add that, we should be able to access this, and now let's just sync it. Okay, now it's done. So we'll get over here, and now you can access the flow. So that's that. Now, okay, just one more thing. We need a list of listing rather than just one listing. So we add this listing over here like this. This is one. You can create one more functionality. For example, you can say get listing by ID, and it will return a listing one item as a listing item. And basically that's something that you have. So basically over here what we did is we basically just defined the blueprint of how the suppliers can basically give us the data, what they can get. You can get ID from us, and then in return we'll be requiring this kind of model object. Okay, now the next thing would be to create some use cases. So for use cases, again, you can create a Kotlin class, call that, let's say, get all listing use case. Like I said, one functionality, it will just perform one task and not much. And now you will be saying private wall repositories like this. And over here, like this execute functionality can behave differently based on how you want it. So for now, let's just say that it will be doing this thing. It will get the result from the repository, and this execute will just return that. So yeah, that's basically simple use case that you did. You can definitely maybe add some more processing over here into this. For example, let's say you want to show the data you want to show the data and sort it. So basically you can say wall data is equals to get dot this, and then you will say data dot map, right? And then inside that, what you can do is that you can say sort by descending, and then do something like that. Okay, and then you can say return data, something like this. And then we definitely need to change the return type of this so that it can return something like this. So like I said, it you can do these kind of things as well. You can define what kind of business you want to implement over here, and this is how it will be done. Now again, this listing repository is not the actual implementation. It is just the blueprint that the data needs, so that based on that it can. So process and provide the data. So over here for this, the data module will just say that, okay, for this, what I need to do is that I need to provide these kind of things, and it will just provide us these information and this list of data and all. So so that's why basically we'll be using this. Now we have a model ready, we have repositories implementation, and we have the use case ready. Now we will jump to the data section. Inside data section, how we want to make things. Now in the data section, like I said, we need a couple of things. One thing is going to be the dummy data provider. So we're going to dummy data source, and that is going to be a file. For now, let's just keep it this way. And then over here, you will be creating some more packages. Again, it's going to be model. That's one thing. Then you need repository for that. And then you will also need some mappers. So I think that's something. Let's just also use, like, place that into data source, into the source as well. Okay, so now we have data source. Now we need mappers and model. Now one thing that is a little bit, that might be a little bit confusing for you as well. Like, let's say if I create one more class over here, and let's call that travel listing DTO. Okay, and that is going to be a data class. So now a travel listing DTO is basically kind of a similar thing, like this, but now the question arises is that why we have two different models with like kind of same things. The travel listing also have all this information, and this listing also have this similar information. Uh, but why do we need that? Why can't we use the same similar one? To answer that, I think the thing is that we need these models separate from data and domain, so that they are independent. Basically, the data over here, let's say you want to add some sort of serialization, you will have to add only on this, and you won't have to like change this. Also, the server might return so much more information to you. Like for this travel listing, there might be so many other information that are part of this, but the domain just need this one. So what you have to do is that you can maybe add more information into this, keep it over here, but the travel listing you provide just the one. Let's say later on, the structure of this change, the server change the APIs, and the way the response is getting into the system is different. Like previously, maybe it was ID, now it's getting as listing ID, and the title is getting as listing title. Now this will become difficult if you are directly using the models from the list from the domain section, because that will have to go to your domain and change the domain, and when you change the domain model, you'll have to change the UI model, and all these things, and this will make things so much difficult. It will just kill the concept of clean architecture, of keeping thing independent, because that way you change domain, and then you change the data section, and then you have to change the UI section, so everything just like breaks down. So that's why basically we keep the models different, so that the data can work with its own models, and then once the data is processed, everything is done, then we convert it based on the domain, and I'll show you that with the mappers. Okay, now that's one thing. The next thing would be to create a mapper class, and the mapper class is just a class that helps you convert one model into another model. Like it will help you convert your domain model into your travel listing DTO for the data model. So it's just simple as that. Now it's going to be travel listing mapper. What it's gonna do is that it will be saying to function to domain, and it's just it will just use the travel listing from the domain section. And now you can see that the travel listing over here is not accessible, because in the Gradle we haven't defined it to be part of this. We also need to change this uh, with this. So basically it's quite a little bit easier, and now also we'll get rid of all these iOS main, Android main, and all that. We don't need that. Okay, we are done over here. we'll be implementing the domain, and we'll also be implementing the coroutine as well. So we'll just add this, sync it. Now once you sync it, the data mapper will now be able to access the travel listing from there, and now you have this listing to domain. You can also define multiple one as well. So basically over here, if you pass a list, it will convert it to the list. And you can also do the reverse one as well. So basically this time it will just reverse the stuff. Okay, so I think that's that. Now we have the travel mapper ready as well. We have the data source that's basically be the one that's provide us the data. So I have a data source created over here, and I'm gonna use class dummy data source, and over here will basically be using this. So basically what we do is that we create a list of different travel destinations, and that's all. So basically that's all that we do. And also we might want to create a state over here so that we can access that, is equals to mutable state flow, and we can say create dummy listing as state flow so that we can access that. Okay, so now we have this, the dummy data source is there, it's provided, the travel mapper is there, the travel list DTO is there, and now the repository pattern is like the repository is supposed to be implemented. So now over here what I'm going to do is that I'm going to say uh, listing repository impl. Okay, now this is going to be the class that basically implement the listing repository from the domain section. So once we do that, what it will do is that it will give the or like provide the actual implementation of how the things are supposed to be done. Okay, and like I said, we have a data source, so let's just pass the dummy data source into this as well. And now over here you can again create private wall underscore listing. So over here you can say mutable state flow of list of listing, list of travel listing, and the initial one is, let's say you call it empty list, and then you will say private listing as state flow like this. Now over here inside that, what you do is that you say data source return data source, let's make it a wall so that we can access this, and now say, let's say data source dot listing. Now when you try data source dot listing, you will see that it is basically um, a DTO, right? But we need is the travel listing, the one that is basically based on the domain model. So now over here, what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna say dot map, and now once we map, what it will do is that it will convert, like over here now we can do is we can just convert everyone into the domain model. So I'm gonna say wall domain models is equals to travel listing mapper dot to domain, and then over here we'll be passing that. Okay, that's one thing, and then we convert it, and now over here we'll be saying listings dot value. Okay, oh sorry, that is going to be state flow. Okay, so now once you do that, you'll be able to access the value from here, and now I think this is done. Over here when it comes, you can define something as this, basically just mapping it and finding it by based on the ID. So basically this is basically the repository that we have, and now the repository is ready, and the travel listing section is ready, travel listing mapper is done, data source already have all this information. Now we have all these things, and now what we need to do is that we need to access it. So in the common main section, in the presentation sections over here, let's create a new package, call it listings. And now this listing is supposed to be we'll be creating a Kotlin class file, and let's call that listing screen. Okay, this is going to be function and composable. So we can create a composable for this. Okay, we need to add the relevant dependencies to this as well. Again, use, since we have a same source for all of them, we'll be using this. Okay, that's one thing. And what we need to do is that we need to go to common main section. Now over here we need to add a couple of things. For example, we need domain, we need the coroutines, we definitely need this. So basically these are some of the things we will be adding. Domain is supposed to be part of this, and then we will be using core and view model for this. So now let's just sync it. And now the sync is done. So we'll get over here into the presentation section, go to source, Android main, Kotlin. Now over here, in this presentation section, we'll be working on on our code base. Okay, so not over main. So now over here in the end common main section, and inside this common main, we'll be creating a new package, and let's call that package as listings. Okay, and now this listing, inside that we need two different. One is the travel listing UI state. That's one file, and the other one is going to be a view model for that. So I'm going to say travel listing view model. Okay, this is going to be class, and it is supposed to be the view model. Now this travel listing view model is supposed to have a use case. So I'm going to say wall get all listing use case like this, and this use case will be there. Now this, now inside that you can say, let's say for, but first we go to the travel listing UI state, data class travel listing UI state. Okay, and now I'm going to say wall listings is going to be list of listings, oh sorry, list of travel listing, and let's use this is loading error message. Okay, so these are some of the states value that we have. So now over here you can define some of the other functionality. For example, has listing if the listing is not empty, and if it's an empty state. So some of the extra functionalities for you. Now over here in the view model, what you need is that we need a state. So I'm going to say wall, or you can say private wall UI state. UI state is equals to, that is going to be mutable state of travel listing UI state. Okay, and over here you can say wall UI state dot state flow. Let's use this for this so that it's a bit easier to manage. Now over here you have a functionality, and you can say init load travel listings. Now we create a function, simple a function travel listings, and now inside that you can just say view model scope dot launch. Now over here, what we are going to do is that we're going to do something like this. We'll say UI state dot value, and we'll basically say that the loading is true, error message is null. And let's say if there is any sort of listing, we'll be setting it as empty. Now over here, I'm going to say this dot execute, and then we'll collect it. Over here what happens is that whatever result we get, we basically pass it to the UI state, and in the case of error we just say the loading is false, and the error message will be part of that UI state. So basically this is done. This is all these things are there, and now we are done with this. Okay, now the last thing that we all need is basically a screen where we can populate that. So we'll go over here to the compose section, and the common main Kotlin section. This is the app section. Over here let's just create one more package and call it listings, and now inside this listing one, create a Kotlin class and call it travel listing screen. Okay, and we'll create a composable for that, composable function travel listing screen. And now over here you can do stuff, uh, create, like you can do all the creation and all that, right? So over here let's say you use view model and that view model is supposed to be listing view model. I think it's called as, what's the name of the view model? It's travel listing view model. So we'll be using this. So we'll be using travel listing view model for that. And now, like I said, this app is basically kind of the restaurant that the whole restaurant that basically contains everything and it can bind it. So over here, we are gonna we'll be implementing all these things. So I'm gonna say implementation, project, domain, data, and presentation. So all these will be part of this, and now we'll sync it. The reason we sync it will basically, this is basically the point where the DI and all that will be implemented, and like we will be accessing everything. So basically that's kind of something we all need. And now over here you can see, you can get something like this. Now all these thing is done. The screen will basically be using wall, or you can say scaffold. Okay, or no, we don't need that. Instead we'll be using a column, and that column is going to be modifier dot padding. We'll be using id for that. Let's use lazy column directly and just print all the data that we have. Now we have something like this. Okay, over here I'm going to say wall listing state is going to be view model dot view model dot state dot collect as state with life cycle. Okay, and now over here we're gonna do is that we are, let's do something like, no, not this. Instead I'm gonna say items, and this is going to be listing state dot value, like this, value dot listings as well. Now we don't have this travel listing item, so let's just create one composable travel listing item. And now over here you can just, for now we'll just be using a simple one with a title and description. You can definitely add some more design stuff to this, but it's not the like actually what we want here. Okay, now it's fine. So what happens is basically we created this screen that basically needs a view model, and then this view model screen is in the part, like it's in the compose main, which is basically the UI section. It goes to presentation through view model, and this view model basically goes to domain asking for some sort of information. So this use case then goes to data, and then get those data, and then again this data is basically again came back to the UI part over here, and then we display it over here. So this is how it should work, right? Now inside this app section, now we have this app that's basically, I'm not sure what's it doing. We do not need that. Instead, what we can do is that you can say wall view model is equals to view model. Okay, and then inside that we need to create a view model. So I'm going to say wall, um, not wall. Instead, I'm going to say travel listing view model, and it requires some sort of use case for that. So you can say get all listing use case, and this also needs a listing repository. So I'm going to say listing repository impl for that, like this, which needs dummy data source that you can define. So now over here you will see that I had to basically manually inject all these dependencies. We'll definitely be using some other methods for this. This is not the right way. We'll just do it right after we test the implementation. We'll implement dependency injection, and I'll show you how it will make all these things super simple in a way. But for now, let's just use this so we can test it. Now over here, the next thing would be to create a travel listing screen. travel listing screen. This is my travel listing screen and it needs a view model. So we'll just pass that view model into it. Now let's just run it and see if we get the travel listing in the emulator. I'm quite hopeful we will, but if we won't, then we'll implement, or like we'll get that fixed. Okay, it's running, and now you can see that it's basically showing me the points, or like the seven entries that I had in the dummy data source, and all these things worked in a proper way. But so basically, this was like one part of implementing it. Now the next part would be to implement dependency injection into it, so that we don't have to create all these objects on our own, and it's just the di that help us inject all these into our code base. So yeah, let's just get started with that. So basically, for to implement the dependency injection, what we need is that we need where is the so over here, what we need is basically we need to define Koin. We'll be using Koin, which basically works pretty well with the Compose multi-platform. So for Koin, what I'm gonna do is that we'll get over here. Here are some dependency that we'll be using, and we'll be using Koin Compose for. I think there are some latest versions, so just make sure that you use the latest one. I believe there should be no problem with that. Okay, so now once you implement that, the thing is that we need this everywhere. So over here, what we are gonna do is that we're gonna say implementation libs dot coin dot core. This is my compose app. We'll just sync that. We also need this coin core in the data section as well. We'll be using just coin core, which will gain the only Kotlin implementation of Coin, right? And now inside this presentation, Coin Core and Coin Compose View Model. So these are the two things that we did over here. Now let's just sync this as well over here. Okay, so now the importing is done, and now what we need to do is that we need to create, like, let's just create a package, call it di. Okay, and this is going to be the data module. So let's just create another Kotlin class name, and inside that we create a file, call that data modules, data module. Okay, and I'm going to say wall data module is equals to module, like this. This is from Coin, and now inside that you can just define your entries. I'm going to use dummy data source for this, dummy data source over here, like this. Import, that's done. And then we need the listing repositories defined over here. So I'm going to say single again, and over here you're gonna see we're gonna use listing repository, and inside that we'll be using listing repository implementation, like this, which will be something like this. So basically the data module is ready, and now we'll go over here to the domain section, and over here let's just create di, and then this di will be helping us create the use cases for this. So again, another file, and I'm going to say domain modules. Okay, and I'm going to say wall domain module. This is something like this, import, and that is going to be get all listing use case, and we also need travel listing. You can definitely define as, sorry, it's going to be listing repository, like this. Okay, so basically this factory will make sure that the use cases are created over here. Third one is the this section. Inside that, let's create one more package, again di, create a new Kotlin file, and this file is supposed to be a presentation module. Again, a file, I'm going to say wall presentation module, and that is going to be equals to module. And over here inside that you can create your view model. So over here you know that we have a listing view model, so I'm going to say listing view model, travel listing view model, and it requires a use case, so we'll just through get it through this. Now the di section for all these elements are done. Now we go over here to the compose app section. So now inside this common main, inside Kotlin, let's just create one more package, call it di, and then inside that create a Kotlin file, call it app module. Okay, and this is going to be wall app module like this is equals to list of, and now over here you can just say presentation module, domain module, and data module. It's going to be this, and import that as well. Okay, so now this is done, and over here now basically what we need to do is that we need to start the coin, like initialize the coin in a way. So for that we need to do it separately for both for Android and iOS. Now for Android, what we need to do is that right before the set content you can say start coin, and now once you do that, what you need to do is that you can define all these things basically. Now you will see that it will the app module should be accessible like this. Android context is not accessible, and also the Android logger is also not accessible because we need to add some sort of dependencies. And to do that, you need to go to get over here, and inside this Android main section, what you need is that you need to define that can coin Android part, and we sync that. Now, once you sync that, you go back to the main activity over here. This time you'll be able to import both the logging and that for this one. This is the start coin section done. And we go over here to the iOS main view controller. Now over here, what you can do is that you can say configure, and inside that you can say start coin and define your app modules over there. So basically that's that. Now the coin is there. Coin is basically be created in both Android and iOS, and you should be able to access the coin implementation and all that. Now over here inside this section, like we did like this, we can get rid of all that, and instead we get over here and we say equals to coin view model. Now it's not there because we need one more dependencies, and that is basically going to be coin compose. For this, that is compose view model as well. Yeah, now I think we should be good. Let's just sync it, and we go over here into the back. What's that? Yes, and instead you can just import this, and now Coin will make sure to initialize everything, so you don't have to do all the initialization. Now over here we are not initializing anything, we're just defining our travel in the presentation, and it's now accessible. And now let's just run it, just like so that you see if it's actually working as we said. So the ideal situation, we should see the same screen, but this time we are not creating anything manually. Everything is basically created and managed through dependency injection, and that is Coin. And you can see now it's same flows. Okay, so let's try running the iOS. For some reason it's crashing. Okay, it says that it's not able to create the view model, which means there is something wrong with the dependency injection that we have done, like how the Coin has been configured in the iOS. So let's just go to common main in a compose, and go to not common main, it should be iOS main controller view. And yeah, okay, this is the issue. It should be passed as module. We were just passing it as this. Let's call it like this. And now let's try once again. This time I'm hopeful that it will work. uh, okay, you can see it's perfectly working, and this is how we want it to be. Now I think that's pretty much it for what we wanted to do. In this video, what we did is that basically we created the clean architecture as a base, and also we integrated Koin for dependency injection. And in the next video, we'll start working on the other features of the app. But for now, for this video, I think that's pretty much it. Just to sum up what we did, basically we created three different modules. One is domain, which is the core business logic. Then we created data module that contains the data, that basically provides the data, and it is supposed to help us get or fetch data from the servers or NAND database and all that. Then we created the presentation that contains the UI state and and the view models and all that. And then in the Compose app is basically binds everything together. So yeah, that's something we did. And in terms of how the application, like how the flow or the data goes, we did is basically we created a simple screen inside this in the common main, and that is basically the travel listing screen that uses a travel view model, which is part of the presentation layer. And this travel this view model, what it does is basically it goes to the use case which is in the domain model. And it what it does is basically it uses a repository, and this repository is basically part of it's basically implemented in the data model. And based on that, it basically just fetch the data from the data source, dummy data source that we have for now. We can use API services over here or database source over here as well. And based on that, this whole data flow works. So that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, happy coding. Bye. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you found this tutorial helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and press the bell icon so you don't forget any update. If you got any question, you can join my Discord server. The link is in the description. Also, for quick updates and tips, you can follow me on Instagram. Until next time, keep learning, keep developing. Bye.